Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Pointing Not Sharp. Today we're out here at the Lone Pine Barracks Infantry Museum taking a look at some of the fantastic pieces within their collection. So this is pretty much my holy grail of bayonets. This is the prototype lysatt Owen gun bayonet, and it looks incredibly funky, but as a knife it's actually very comfortable and I really don't mind it. It was designed by someone who knew nothing about knife manufacturing, so I'll give them a pass on any of the slights, but it's, really good. I like it. I wanted to get my hands on one to see how they handle for a very long time, and I'm not disappointed in the least. It's really ergonomic. The large grip is really comfortable, so it's a shame. I wish they were more common. I'd get my hands on one. Anyway, the bayonet here is made for the prototype Mark II Owen machine carbine. We don't call submachine guns in Australia, or back in World War II we didn't. We called them machine carbines. And 200 of these prototype machine carbines and bayonets were produced in 1942 by Lysatt's works in Port Kembla. That's I think they were like a steel refinery down near like Wollongong, just south of Sydney in the state of New South Wales in Australia. So a little bit of history. In 1942 we got the Owen gun. If you want to know more about the Owen gun, check out M. McCollum's video on Forgotten Weapons. He's done a fantastic job representing the history. It has a very interesting history, the way it was initially designed and marketed and pushed into service. It's a very good story. I highly recommend you jump into that. But the initial Owen, the Mark I, as produced in 1942, did not have a bayonet lug or a mechanism for attaching a bayonet. And there were a couple of other issues as well. So they asked for a trial of a Mark II. There was an updated version, which is what we have here. And it was much more than just the bayonet that was updated. The stock was addressed. We've got a new style of stock. Overall it's a little bit lighter. There's a whole range of small improvements. I won't go through them because we're focusing on bayonets for the purpose of this video. But overall it was a lightened version. So the Lysatt chief engineer, who was G.S. Wardell, he actually designed this bayonet and he had no prior knife experience at all. But I guess you don't need a terrible lot, do you? You just need comfortable handle, a good heat treated blade, and a way to attach it to a rifle. That's realistically all you need for a bayonet. But for whatever reason, like the Austen bayonet, the Mark II and bayonet failed the trial, or it wasn't accepted for whatever reason, and all of these bayonets, or nearly all of them, were sent to Port Kembla for disposal in the furnace, and sadly only a handful have survived. So there's a couple that have been sent to defence collections, like we've got this one here in the Infantry Museum at Lone Pine Barracks. The War Memorial have one as well. And on top of that, there's a couple in private hands, but you really don't see them very often at all. I actually saw one come up for sale last year for $2,500 Australian dollars, and it's sold before I could get to it because I would have bought that in a heartbeat. That was an absolute steal. But yeah, fantastic little blade. We might jump into the construction very quick. So we've got a very simple blade with a slight false edge, nice true edge. This one is not sharpened, and it's got a very heavy blue in it. We've got a lot of horizontal tool marks running down the length of the blade. The spine itself is very, very thin, like 2 to 3 millimeters. There's not much there at all. And the blade feels like it likely has a little bit of bend in it. You'll notice it's got like a resin coating on it. That's not original. That's something the museum did about 50 years ago for preservation. So to keep it in the best state possible. Moving down, the handle is a little bit difficult to describe. So essentially we have a stamped piece of sheet metal that has been placed into the handle, comes up, loops around, and then comes back down, and that goes around the tang. And it looks like the tang is held in place by 3 pins. So we've got 1, 2, 3. And then we've got wooden grips over the top, and the whole thing has been painted in a green yellow. I've also seen them in just green, and I've also seen them with just like the original wood and the original steel color. And we have a little pin down here holding our two pieces together, if that will focus. Moving down here, the locking mechanism is surprisingly simple. We have a little ramped catch just here, focus please, and then that's just on a little spring pushing it up, and we've got a little button to press here that goes down and up. So when you fix this to the machine carbine, the ramp lug will be pushed down by the machine carbine as it passes, and then it'll pop up under spring tension and snap into place, locking it to the carbine. These two holes here are to let gas escape, because this is actually placed over the muzzle device, and the muzzle device has vents on the top and not the bottom. So we'll get the machine carbine up here and we'll have a quick look. As you can see, we've got our front sight offset to the right, and we don't actually have a bayonet lug. So the way this works is it just slides over the muzzle, and you might notice we have a recess just here to accommodate the sight. So we line that up, and the bayonet lug just comes up and snaps in behind the rear sight. It's not the sturdiest in the world, there's a little bit of give and a little bit of wiggle to it, but not a terrible solution. I quite like it. So I'll pull that lug down and off comes the bayonet. Not the most ergonomic way to remove it. I'm not a terrible fan of that. Now we'll take a quick look at the markings. So on the right handle here, in the wood, we've got Owen 9mm lysatt Australia. Not too much to explain about that. And nothing on the left handle. From what I can tell, this marking isn't always here. I've seen one example that didn't have it, so who knows. Is that a number just there? That might be a number. I've never seen this number before in any other example, so I don't know if that's from the museum or if that's original, but it looks like there's a number etched onto the handle up there as well. This one also has a red marking here on the ricasso. As per other exhibits in the museum, that's part of their referencing system, or their old referencing system, and is not typical of this style of bayonet. While I'm here, we found a couple, well, sorry, the curator showed me a couple of the experimental dual magazine setups that were trialled. So I thought I'd go through them as well, a bit of fun. We've got the A model, which is two sort of offset like an A. We've got the B model, end to end. We've got the C model, end to end the other way, so this time facing in instead of facing out. We've got the D model, so end to end. And then finally we've got the E model, which I reckon is probably the coolest. It's offset actually, maybe not. So yeah, some cool little experimental magazines where they've just welded them together, occasionally with a little steel bar. Now the Mark II carbine itself is significantly lighter than the Mark I. I've shot the Mark I and it's a fantastic shooter. It's a very, very heavy submachine gun, and the weight just absorbs the recoil. It just sits on target. It's very pleasant, very bland to shoot, honestly. The Mark II here, being much lighter, I imagine would be a bit more fun to shoot, but being an experimental example within a museum, I doubt this one will ever be shot again. And a lot of these older sheet metal submachine guns as well, I'm not going to say this particular one, but some of them, particularly Stens, have issues with the welds degrading over time, and a lot of them aren't safe to shoot, so you have to be particularly careful when you do shoot older machine guns that are made of stamped metal, not meal. Anyway guys, that's really all I've got to say today about this carbine magazines and this beautiful bayonet. They came with a leather sheath. I'll call it a sheath, not a scabbard, because the scabbard has a hard body. And while I don't have an example of the sheath to show you today, essentially it was just one of the fighting knife sheaths that Australia was using during the Second World War. And I have found one or two of those sheaths, and I've recommended them to people who have this bayonet but don't have the scabbard. Anyway guys, if I've made any mistakes or left anything out, as always, please feel free to comment below. We'd love to hear from you, and thanks for watching.